Hi everybody, it's Julia, your trusted travel expert, helping you find that je ne sais quoi wherever you are in the world. And I apologize if it's a little noisy. I only have this particular moment to do this, and my neighbor's yard people just showed up. So welcome to fall. It's almost fall. It doesn't feel like it. It's 90 degrees here in North Carolina today, and the summer yard people are still coming to do their thing. But I wanted to talk to you about a trip that I'm about to do, and I've got a bunch of different clients doing it as well, and that is fall foliage tours, going to see the leaves change. And it's funny because growing up in North Carolina, I didn't even really know that that was a thing, because I just grew up with the leaves changing all around me all fall, and I thought that was normal. I thought that was something that happened everywhere. But if you're not from basically the eastern seaboard, this is maybe a new phenomenon to you, and it's even for people that do live here, going to see the leaves in all their glory and some of these mountainous beautiful places is really a fun trip. Now there are lots of different places you can do it. Like I said, the eastern seaboard, or the mountains, the Appalachian up into the northeast, the mountains are kind of the best. The Rockies are of course beautiful. They're much more drastic and stunning as far as scenery goes. But when I lived out there, I didn't find the color to be as rich. So I'm really talking about the east. And when you want to go is the most important and also hardest thing to nail down. It really depends also, because it shifts. Like the leaves peak are at their most colorful up in the north first and slowly move south, right? Because obviously the south is warmer than the north, and so the leaves stay longer. But we're mostly talking about kind of now, mid-September through the end of October, give or take sometimes. Sometimes it can be really beautiful up until Halloween here in North Carolina. And where you want to do it and how long you want to go, those are really big considerations, because you could easily do it for a long weekend, or you could do it for a week or 10 days or even longer. There are lots of different places and options. Like I said, down south you can do Asheville and the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Blue Ridge Parkway up into the Shenandoah Mountains. The Shenandoah are beautiful. Doing that Skyline Drive through Shenandoah National Park is a gorgeous way to do it. And that's also an easy long weekend away from the DC area. The Asheville, Boone, kind of Blue Ridge Parkway area is a really easy long weekend, either flying into Charlotte Airport or even the Asheville Airport. And then over on the Smoky side, on the Tennessee side, that's also a nice area. Gatlinburg, I know, is a really popular place for certain things, but that's a little more remote. You have to drive a little further from like Knoxville, kind of. And then what I'm doing with my mom is we are doing Eastern Canada. We're not doing Atlantic Canada, so like Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island and all of that. That would be beautiful, and I do want to do that one time. Although I think that's slightly more coastal than it is foresty. We are doing the capital, so from Toronto to Quebec City. And we decided to do a tour because we didn't want to do all the driving. And so we are going the beginning of October. And so hopefully at that stage, although that's one of the last weeks they do the trip, the leaves will be at peak. We'll see. But regardless, it should be beautiful. But the heart and soul of fall foliage or leaf peeping tours is really New England. I mean, there's so many different options. So there are so many different places to see in that sort of New England encompassed area. It's ridiculous. You could do, multiple weeks up there. You could do quick trips out of Boston or New York City. But there are also tours that you could take, escorted tours, so that you don't have to worry about the driving, which would be really great. But from what I could tell, especially if it's a bus tour, which means 30 or 35 people on a bus, those generally do sort of wider loops and kind of stay in larger cities and larger hotels, obviously, because they have to house 30 to 40 people. So what my clients have elected to do, and what I highly recommend, is to drive yourself, do a self-drive tour, because then you can kind of go on the little tiny back scenic curvy routes and stay in the little B&Bs in the small towns. For example, I have one set of clients that are doing a loop around Boston. Now my dog is barking, apologies. but they're starting and ending in Boston, so that obviously makes for a very easy flight. And they're spending quite a bit of time going up through Portsmouth, up along the Maine coast. They're not going all the way up to Acadia National Park because they don't have the time, but that's a spectacular spot, especially during fall foliage times. Then, you've got the White Mountains up in northern New Hampshire, which are spectacular. The Omni Mount Washington in Bretton Woods is a really historic, beautiful resort hotel. Obviously, is skiing in the winter, but it is spectacular in the fall. It's a big white building with an orange roof. So with the fall colors, it would just be unbelievable. Moving over to Vermont, Vermont is chock full of adorable towns, quirky, Ben & Jerry's ice cream, quirky kind of cute small towns, great foliage. The Green Mountains are sort of in the southern end of Vermont. And then, they're continuing to the Berkshires, which is western Massachusetts. And that's a really interesting area. It's got lots of great, like Williams College. It's got lots of great, it's highly educated, I feel like. All of New England is. But it's also the home of the Northern Rockwell Museum. Really cool stuff in sort of that western Massachusetts area. And then those clients are driving straight back to Boston. But then I have other clients who are doing round trip out of Hartford, Connecticut, which is a much smaller airport. But they sort of have already done Boston, so they're kind of skipping Boston, and they're kind of doing the reverse, but they're also including more of the coast. They're doing, like Newport, Rhode Island, and they aren't going out to the Cape, but the Cape is tricky if you're going to include the Cape, just because you have to kind of cross Boston to get out to the Cape. Totally beautiful. I don't know how much fall foliage there is out there, but it certainly is something that you've got to consider if you're thinking about going to that area. And then one final area I want to kind of talk to you about and highlight that we really wanted to try and combine with our Canada trip, but it didn't quite work, is the Hudson River Valley. So going north out of New York City, follow the Hudson River up north, you see, all the great homes like FDR's home. I think the Astors have a home up there that you can visit, ancestral home or, old home. West Point Academy is up there. It is a beautiful campus to see. And you could even continue that up and kind of go take a detour to the Finger Lakes region or Lake Placid in upstate New York. And that's also another beautiful spot for fall foliage. Basically what you're looking for is deciduous trees, mountains or hills, so that you have vistas and you just see all of those different reds and oranges and yellows and all those different colors, and it's really, really special and really spectacular. And so it may be too late to book it for this year, but if you're kind of thinking about ideas, maybe your kids have gone off to school, or maybe you want a different fall break next year or something like that, I just wanted to highlight the fall foliage trips and kind of give you an idea of what all the different options are. You probably do, that is, especially if you're going to like those small inns in New England, like I said, this is definitely a trip that sells out. Those inns fill up really quick because they're small. So this is not a trip that you can really do at the last minute or do well at the last minute. You want to book definitely 3 or 4 or 5 months in advance, just to make sure that you get the route that you want and the experience that you want, especially because on those peak weeks, those people know when they are going to be, and it can get really crazy. So, end of September, beginning of October, you definitely want to book out in advance. So that's it for this week. It got all quiet. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next week. Bye.